Hello everyone. In the previous videos, we have created a database called company with EMP table which has three columns, ID, name, and salary. Now we are going to create a PHP file which accepts the ID of the employee and return a JSON object with ID, name, and salary. Then we are going to call this PHP file from the Android operating system using the Volley library. So let's start with NetBeans. Here we are going to add another PHP file which called find emp. As we have talked in the previous videos, to make connection with MySQL database, we are going to create an object from the MySQL I with local host as server, root as default username, empty password as default password, and the database name which is company. Then we should add the statement using the prepare function. The statement is select star from EMP where ID equal specific variable which is question mark. Now we should define this question mark using the bind param function with I as data type which is integer, and because we are going to pass this variable from the URL, so you should define the ID as get. The last thing is statement execute. Now, after this, we should define a variable which is called rs get result, which will get all the result and store it in the rs. Now, define a variable which is called row to print the output on the screen with the fetch associative. No, not fetch array, but fetch associative. So it will return all the data and store it in the row. How can we convert now the row to JSON? So echo JSON encode with the variable row. Now let's try this example. Right click, run file, and we are going to pass it as question mark ID equal, for example, 11 or 1001. Yes, we have got an employee with the ID 1001. Let's try another one. Yes. Okay. As we have talked also in the previous video, in Android, the local host will not be accepted. So go to the CMD, write ipconfig, and to get this IP, which is 192.168.8.100. So let's try it instead of localhost 192.168.8.100. Yes. Now copy this to the Android. So in Android Studio, we are going to Kotlin and we are going to define a variable called URL with data type string, which is equal to the following URL. Now, in the Kotlin, we are going to define a plain text which will be used to accept the ID from the user, the employee ID, I mean. Let's call it, for example, edit underscore name. Then from the widget, we are going to add a button. Oh, let's remove the text. Yes. Now for the button, I'm going to connect the button to the edit text. I'm going to call it, for example, button underscore find, and I'm going to write find in the text. So the user will enter the ID of employee, then he will click on the find button and he will get the name and the salary of the employee. So we need two text view, one for employee and another one for salary. So I'm going to call it, for example, text underscore name, and another one also for the salary connected to the previous text view and to the edge of the screen, and let's call it text underscore salary. Yes. Now let's go to the Kotlin and say button find dot set on a click listener. The first thing is to cut this line of the URL, cut and paste it inside the on a click, and remove the ID, and instead of the ID we are going to add the edit text. So edit name dot text dot toString. I don't know why I call it edit name. Maybe edit ID is better. No problem now. Anyway, let's create a variable called request queue as the previous video and assign it to the Volley library new request with the context parameter. Now, what are the return type of this PHP file? It is a JSON object. So you should define an object from JSON object request with 5 parameters. The first one is the request dot method dot get as the previous video. The second one is the URL. The third one will be null. The null will be used for JSON request, but we don't have any request from the dot type JSON, so I have put it as null. Now the response dot listener with response as parameter, and the last one response dot error listener with error as parameter. Now here and also here we add space. How can we get now the name and salary of employee? All the JSON object which consists of ID, name, and salary will be stored on the response object. So we are going to add something like text name dot text equal JOR dot sorry, not JOR, sorry, response dot get string name. The same thing will be text salary dot text, which is equal to response dot get string with salary. If there is any error, I'm going to add it, for example, in text name dot text equal error dot message. The last thing, to connect between the request queue and the JOR. So RQ dot add JOR. No, not like this. I'm sorry. Add JOR. Let's try this example now. Let's run. Okay. Now let's try to add the ID of employee, for example, which is 1, 0, 0, and 1, and click on the find button. Yes, Hussein with 3,000. Let's add another one, for example, 1, 0, 0, 3. Click on find. Yes, Ahmed with 1,500. So in this video, we have talked about how can we call a JSON object from PHP file and show the result on the Android device. See you next video.